Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Neto. I am the Market Development Manager at Starin, and today I have a special treat. I have my subject matter expert from Starin who deals specifically in the wonderful world of Zoom. With me is Nic Burton. How are you, sir?
Doing great, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Hey, man, it's a pleasure to sit down and talk to everything Zoom person at Starin. You've been here for a while. How many years have you been with Starin?
It's coming up on about getting close to 5 years, so it's been a while.
Hey, man, 5 years is a lifetime these days.
It feels like it. I actually, when I go back and think about that, I'm like, wow, it's only been 4.5 years or so, getting close to five, but it definitely feels like a lot longer than that for sure.
Awesome. Can you give me an origin story of where you started and what you did and how you got to the point where you're at?
Yeah, for sure. When I started at Starin, I was immediately just working on the inside sales team. I was very fortunate to work under some great leaders of our industry. One of those being Greg Mack, now the National Sales Director of Yamaha UC, Bobby Swartz, who is now our president, Neil Weber, our Vice President of Sales, Melissa Dillman. The list goes on. So I started inside sales and then quickly moved into some regional responsibilities and then more strategic and focusing more on the DMR accounts. Through that process, it's just, Zoom really made a lot of sense and I keyed in on it. And that's what put me in the spot I'm in today.
It's amazing. So for the people that are watching, if we want to turn this into a superhero kind of story, Nic was an average person doing an average job, and then he fell into like a vat of superpower goo, and you turned into Mr. Zoom. It's amazing how quickly you went from just being a CE and escalated that quickly. But you're right. It's all about the mentorship. You're right, man. Maybe I can write a comic book on how you became an AV superhero, or specifically a Zoom hero, and how your story evolved. So you were here early during the onset of when Zoom was brought into the company. I know Bill Mullen and Bobby and Neil had a lot to do with looking into Zoom. What caught your eye about Zoom early on that got your interest and specifically went down that road?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I don't want to be too blanket statement or because we hear this a lot, but honestly, what caught me is just the experience Zoom provides to customers and the ease of use and also the transition that our company made, Starin, from another provider to Zoom, and seeing that how the communication improved, not only internally, but externally, allowing for, a lot more business to happen, a lot more clear communication to happen. So it was part of that really kind of got my wheels spinning there, as far as just my keying in on the interest of Zoom back about 4 years ago.
It's interesting that you go right to where, and if you were to survey 100 people, and this is just my opinion, of the 100 people surveyed, I would say 90 of them would say that the reason why they got attracted to or went towards Zoom was its ease of use. It's a very simple solution. It was almost too simple to the point where you were like, why didn't I think of that? Making the service as easy as possible for people to navigate around, because prior to that, video conferencing was very specialized and not simple. And I don't even think the wording used for video conference was simple. I mean, from an AV perspective, we kept referring to things as near end and far end. I doubt there's still even a lot of people that would refer to things like that as near end and far end and VTC and stuff like that. So Zoom took the complexity out of it. You saw it and you went towards it. And obviously Zoom and Starin started working together and formed a good, really strong partnership that here we are, a couple years later, and we're doing well. You have escalated now and focused in, like I said at the beginning of this, my subject matter expert. What have you seen over the last, let's just go to the last year. Zoom IPOs, obviously, within the last 6 months, and all this, the world changes. What have you seen out of Zoom that has really launched it? What do you think? What's your insider perspective of what really took it to the next level? Because prior to that, it was a video conference service and it was competing with other competitors, but something set it apart over the last year. What are your thoughts on something like
That's a great question. I think there's a lot of answers to that, and I think that kind of goes back to your original observation of, you kind of start here where AV seems so complicated. Zoom really helped take the complication out of it, and I think that's part of their success. Where, not only the ease of use, right, just the platform and your standard licensing and your day-to-day use, but the unique thing that Zoom does as well is really the partnerships that they have with others, their certified technology partners, their certified resellers, their certified integrators. They really take that next step for that experience. Everything they're doing is for the experience. And I just love that about them. I think that's been a big propellant for them, where, you're able to, when you're in, let's say you're designing the Zoom room, there's a list of certified technology partners and equipment that is going to work with that Zoom room. It's going to provide the best experience. It makes things much more simple from the AV guy perspective, right? And I think that's part of it. It's just the ecosystem they've built, the partnerships they've built, how they write things for themselves and their partners from the ground up. I think that's really what separates them. And again, it's just the experience, the end customer experience is what we're all out to deliver. Every one of us here at Starin, all of our channel partners, we're out to deliver the best customer experience. I think Zoom is the best platform for that on the software side of things. So that's really been what's propelled them, in my opinion.
Speaking as a traditional AV person who has come up the ranks over the last 20 years myself, I am guilty of it. I've overcomplicated things because I thought that the customer wanted everything. And typically they don't want everything. They want a very specific thing. And in typical AV fashion, I just attacked it with, you're going to need this because you never know. And then we kept adding too many questions, and a tighter needs analysis would have come to the whole fact, or sheer fact, that they just wanted a room that went from A to B, and it didn't require a manual. It's funny because I've said it in other videos that I've done. The minute that I started noticing that touch panels came with a manual, we failed as an industry because we've overcomplicated a touch panel to the point where you have to read, a 50-page manual on how to use the touch panel that was supposed to solve it. So we have, unfortunately, we're guilty of that for a lot of us in the industry for doing that. And I apologize for doing that. I guess I have to admit that. But so the ease of use, obviously in the last year, there's been a lot of changes within the world. Really quick, I know you have an interesting story that you could share regarding, of all people, your dad. Now, I'm going to go and ask you this question, and I want to base it off the fact that my mom has not known what I've done for the last 20-something years. When my mom asks me to Zoom her, right, it has reached a new level. She finally gets what I do. I've been in the video conferencing kind of industry since 1998. She didn't understand why, where I went to go work for a company that was selling at the time was Polycom equipment. But she didn't understand how corporate was going to use that. And I explained, it's a travel alternative. Video conferencing has matured to the point where it's beyond just a travel alternative for airplanes at the time, which it was getting kind of costly. Tell me the story about your dad and how you sat with him and basically transformed his business from a local mindset to more of a bigger global mindset.
Yeah, that's a great one, and that was a lot of fun. Just for a little background, my dad's been in the employee benefits world for many years. Stuck with that his whole career. So in that realm of things, there's a lot of regional activity, and they maintain that regional activity, but with regional activity comes the travel, right? So my dad, he's putting 100,000 miles on his car every single year since I was a little kid. So when all of this happened, the current situation we're in, the health side of things. He finally came to me and said, I've got to do something about this. What do I do? This is what you do, right? And so,
I love that you've been doing this for 5+ years and your dad's still asking you, this is what you do, right?
yeah.
Welcome to
Yeah.
AP, Nick.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess, some of the Zoom shirts and hats that my buddy sent me that he's, seen me wear, it clicked with him. Hey, can Zoom help my business? Can it help me talk to my customers, conduct meetings, conduct renewals? That's a big part of the insurance side, if not the biggest, is, those customer renewals. And, it started coming up on that time of year, for him. And the question was, how am I going to get in front of all these folks and make sure they understand how they're taken care of from the insurance perspective? And that was a challenge, right? And I love my dad so much, but he is just not a technical guy at all. I mean, just far from it. He's so we wanted to keep it simple and keep it basic, and also enable his team, so then he doesn't have to be the one doing all of this as well. So that was kind of how we started off on the process. And long story longer, we implemented some of our work from anywhere solutions, our Yamaha YBC 200 with the Hudley Go, and a couple of different things there. Also setting up their internal office in their boardroom with the Zoom room. So for when they go back and everything's ready to go there. So what that, just seeing the impact of once they got signed up, I worked with a good friend of mine at Zoom, Kalen Lassiter, who is an all-star on the AE perspective there, who took great care of my dad. And then one of our resellers here that we've worked with for over 30 years, actually, provided the hardware. And, he was up and running quickly. That was the beauty of it. It was a quick turn, got everyone everything they needed. And they're off and running with Zoom. And my dad is now conducting Zoom meetings as a Zoom expert, just about. I mean, he's taking advantage of all the features. They're conducting great presentations with amazing feedback. They're providing the recordings of the meetings, so those that can't attend can watch at a later date. It's really, it's put quite a big step ahead in their business and how they can, really expand their reach, and save time, which time is money. So it's just been really cool to see. A funny thing about that, the first Zoom meeting that they had, my dad was telling me that he could barely sleep the night before because he was so excited about it. Because I took him through it, he understood it, and he was ready for it. And it was like being a little kid again, with a new toy, and that toy is, really turned into something very powerful for their business. So it's just a really cool thing to bring family into the picture.
It's funny because you start the story off by saying my dad puts 100,000 miles. He was mobile to begin with. The only difference is that he basically removed the car portion of it and replaced it with Zoom. And the other thing that I find interesting is, I'm sure, just like every other traditional business that's out there that is, coming back to a headquarters, I think, I've kind of got the sense that Zoom became the anchor of the business. It's not a traditional physical building anymore, or going out for 6-7 hours and coming back to the office and getting the stuff done. I think, from what you tell me, Zoom replaced the physical, I got to go to the office part of the sales of the insurance and HR business that your dad was typically used to. And Zoom kind of became that. Is that fair to say?
I agree. I do agree 100%. I think it's, in the end, business, all of us are, working for companies or managing companies. It's all about efficiency, in the end. And I think Zoom is a major anchor for that, especially in the current times where everything's very complicated. It's stressful, and it's, especially for those, and even like me, I'm very used to, as you know, Chris, traveling quite often, shaking hands in person. And it's hard to come close to that experience and the relationship building side. When you're used to doing that, I think Zoom brings you as close as possible to that, and it also allows for you to efficiently conduct business, face-to-face meetings, as close to it as you can get. So I think it is really an anchor for that efficiency of business and that continuity of business, and that's been very unique to be a part of, both in the corporate segment and also in the education segment.
I'm glad you brought up efficiency and continuity, because guess what? We reached the end of this part, and I want to have that continuity heading into the next video that we're gonna record. So, Nic, where can we find out more information about what Starin has to offer regarding Zoom?
Sure, absolutely. Well, you can always join us on our website, www.starin.biz. If you want to reach myself and my team directly, the Zoom subject matter experts and those that can help with anything Zoom hardware related, you can always hit Team Zoom at starin.biz, and someone will be right around the corner to help.
Sounds great, man. I can't wait to take this to the next episode of this conversation where we're going to continue on. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. My name is Chris Neto. I am the Market Development Manager here at Starin, and this has been a little conversation with a good friend of mine who is going to continue giving us some insight into the world of Zoom and how Starin can help you and your business not only become more efficient, but to also change and become more digitally effective. Thank you so much. My name's Chris, and I will see you at the next episode.